What if I learn Japanese in a month? Now, it sounds crazy, I know. I'm not gonna say that it's impossible, but it's not possible for me. So the plan was study, immerse, and challenge. My version of studying involved two things, mochi kanji and videos. For this month-long challenge, I tried to use Irodori as my textbook. Irodori has 3 textbooks, Starter, Elementary 1, and Elementary 2. According to the YouTuber and the official site, this is a textbook that was developed by the Japan Foundation. It's intended for those meaning to learn Japanese, especially those preparing to migrate to Japan as workers or as citizens. Since I wasn't consistent on this, I did not include it as part of what I did. However, keep in mind that I have studied using Genki in the past. I have a basic understanding of grammar, which helped with forming sentences later on. During this month-long period of learning Japanese, I focused on a few channels, including Learn Japanese with Tanaka-san and Nin Japanese. As for learning kanji, I saw numerous recommendations online. The ones that I have experience with are Anki, Wanikani, and Mochi Kanji. With Anki, you can either download pre-made sets or create your own. These are basically in-depth flashcards, but the site honestly made me feel like I was reading a textbook or a PowerPoint, and I was also too lazy to make my own, so it ended up not being for me. Now, both Wanikani and Mochi Kanji are more aesthetically pleasing in my opinion, and both divide the necessary kanji or vocabulary into levels so that you aren't learning everything with no rhyme nor reason. These follow the necessary JLPT vocabulary to some extent as well. However, to get the full experience, you also need to pay. With Wanikani, you learn radicals, kanji, and vocabulary. Oftentimes, you would have repetitive information, which can be extra review. Personally, it felt tedious. Mochi Kanji teaches kanji and topic phrases, depending on the chosen lesson. Since I was studying for my trip, I focused quite a bit on phrases that I may end up hearing or having to use in Japan. They also teach how to write kanji characters, how it would sound, and how it can be applied in a sentence. Now, you could probably tell already, but there is some bias with how I presented these information. One method will work better for some, and another method can work better for others. It's personal preference, really. Each one of them has their pros and cons, so do your own research, find which one works for you. I'm personally using Mochi Kanji because of the topic phrases and because it has a cuter aesthetic. Immersion stands for hearing and speaking immersion, and for me this involved skits, streams, and music. I did skits to become familiar with how words are pronounced and how a conversation could be. I focused on 3 scenarios which I thought for certain that I would encounter during my stay in Japan: ordering in a restaurant, checking out in a konbini, and checking into a hotel. Watching streams and listening to Japanese music both held the same purpose of helping my ears become more familiar with listening to Japanese sentences. Now, streamers that I love to watch include Hololive and Holostar's members. Personally, I like all of them, so I just joined whichever streams were live at that moment. Some streamers were more difficult to understand than others, and streams are obviously more difficult to watch than translated clips. Still, raw streams train the ears to listen and force the brain to attempt a translation. But translated clips can also give the brain references for the next time that it hears those phrases. Artists that I listen to daily include Chuki, Yuri, Ado, and Yoasobi. Similar to Japanese streams without translations, these train the ears to listen to Japanese. Yoasobi and Ado songs have lyrics that are a little complex sometimes, whereas Yuri and Tuki were a little easier to understand. At some point, I found that I started to pick up on words that I knew and even began to guess what the song was about. Also, singing these songs can increase familiarity with word pronunciation, at least in my opinion. There were two ways that I challenged my Japanese: playing Animal Crossing in Japanese and translating a Japanese song. Once upon a time, when I was learning French, there was a Reddit comment that said, "Play Animal Crossing in French to practice the language." Well, I thought to give it a try in Japanese. Now, while it didn't teach me anything for my trip, I did learn words like. This was really fun, but it was also hard. If you want to try this method, I would recommend having a good foundation of Japanese first. Also, they don't skip out on kanji, so. For translating Japanese songs, I focused on my favorite artist, Yuri-san. I downloaded the raw lyrics for her songs and tried to read them by following 3 steps. First, I read the lyrics while listening to the song. During this step, the vocabulary could be classified into 3 sections. 1, kanji that I didn't know of yet but could understand once I heard it. 2, kanji and pronunciation that were familiar but I didn't quite know the exact meaning. And 3, wakarimasen. While reading the lyrics, I would try to translate each phrase to the best of my abilities. Second, I whipped out the good old joshi and filled in the blanks. This helped me to learn new vocabulary and helped me to gain a better understanding of the song. Third, I compared my improved translation with an online or official translation. This gave me insight into context that I might have missed.